Hey folks, back again here on Devoted Patriots 2 channel. Now I've got a couple great little video clips here for you. First off, we've got Piers Morgan, who I do not like. He claims to be a conservative, but I don't think so. I've seen the way he treated Carrie Lake behind the election interference issues. And today, he's got Tulsi Gabbard on his show, and he's doing the exact same thing to her, asking her questions about the election. And she handles them better than anybody I have seen. Now, if you've been following my channel, I made a video a week or so ago, maybe a couple weeks back, and just talking about how many different conservatives have been confronted on these left-wing channels. I'm talking about Meet the Press and ABC, NBC. They basically get ambushed, these conservatives, with these questions. Like, if Trump loses the 2024 election, will you accept the results? Do you think the 2020 was rigged? They're trying to create a narrative that Trump is going to not refuse to leave office if he doesn't win. And that's kind of a strange narrative because he's not in office yet. But that's one of the narratives the Democrats have been putting out there. So it's got me thinking, excuse me, it's got me thinking, you know how the Democrats really like to project things? When they're doing something really bad and evil, they start going, it's Trump's fault, it's Trump's fault, it's the other guy, it's the other guy. They have a bad habit of giving away their game with projection. So I was curious to a fact that I haven't heard anybody else bring up. Are the Democrats talking about Trump refusing to secede to his loss in 2024 if he loses by a narrow margin or with or without shenanigans? And so they're trying to ask these conservatives this very question. My question is this about fear-mongering? That was my original thought. But now the more I think about it, the more I realize this is probably a plot, more of a devised plan in order to deflect from the fact that we may be in a war in 6 months or less with Russia, because that is what it looks like the direction of the country is going, or at least the direction of the military aid. And if we're in a wartime situation, Joe Biden can literally decide that he is commander-in-chief and we don't need to hold an election due to our ongoing crisis of being in war. There is a provision for that. I've thought about this many times. And so maybe, could be wrong, but maybe they are projecting this Trump will stay in office thing, Trump won't accept the results thing, because they're going to find an excuse not to have an election. It's about all they got at this point. It's either assassinate Trump or find a way to prevent the election from happening. And so they are looking for excuses, no doubt about it. But every Republican that has been cornered on this question about accepting results has basically danced around the question. And even a couple of them have come out, like Ted Cruz has come out and said, well, if the results are fair, then okay, I accept it. But if there's shenanigans, if there's things that need to be looked at, if there's things that we don't trust, we definitely need to look into it. That's as far as I've seen this conversation go, as far as a Republican defending himself. But Tulsi Gabbard takes her about 2 good minutes to get this out, but all of this needs to be said. Piers Morgan tries to corner her just like all the other left-wing pundits do. And right here at the end of the video, she says something that needs to be said, and all the rest of the Republicans need to remember her talking points about how she answers the question about being asked about accepting the results of the 2024. Perfect answer, folks. All right, let's go ahead and get into it.
President Trump is simply wrong. The election was not stolen by vote rigging. There are other arguments that there was a narrative about Russia and about laptops and so on, which had an adverse effect, and I totally accept that, but not on the vote rigging. Do you accept that?
Yeah, and I think those issues that we're talking about, those bigger issues, should be more of a focus and more of a concern because they had a much greater impact. I have not seen the evidence that you're talking about with regard to the 2020 election day results itself, but I also think it's important to point out that there are valid concerns about election integrity that need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
When I was in Congress and I lived in Washington, D.C., every election day that came around, we bought our house from an estate. The former owners had passed away. And so every election day that came around, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years after we'd already been living there, we got absentee ballots for the former owners who had passed away many years before. It would have been very easy to fill out those ballots and send them in. So when people, I think it's important to point this out, that when people raise concerns around the integrity of our elections, they should not be so easily dismissed. I introduced legislation when I was in Congress that would have mandated the use of paper ballots or a verifiable paper backup if you're using a cold electronic system not connected to the internet in any way. Unfortunately, leaders in Congress on both sides, they were unwilling to take action that would direct states to provide this auditable paper trail to ensure that we can increase the confidence of voters that the vote that they are casting is the vote that's being counted.
You hear that, folks? She tried to put something together in Congress, and she couldn't get enough members from either side to even want to hear it. The Republicans and the Democrats know how this game works. They know about the shenanigans that go on. A lot of them are probably privy to them, probably benefit from them. And so you don't start pointing fingers and picking apart the system if you don't want the system to take you down. And that's what I see here. A lot of these folks are probably in on the whole shenanigans, as far as I could tell. The video, and I've got another video clip after this one as well, folks. You'll love it.
A system can always be improved, but the American electoral system is actually, I would argue, the most secure in the world and the best in the world. Obviously, everything can be improved, but I also think you talk about integrity of elections. It's also important, I think, for any presidential candidate in America, or someone aspiring as you did to be vice president of the country, that you've got to accept the peaceful transfer of power. You have to accept when you've lost. You know, one of my big frustrations with Donald Trump is that there are many qualities that Donald Trump has. He's got an unbelievable thick skin to be able to soak up all this stuff and keep powering on. I've never seen anything quite like it. A lot of the policy stuff he did I thought was very effective. A lot of the rhetoric, less so, but he would argue, well, that's part of what he is, and I get that. But on this stolen election thing, which led, of course, to the terrible scenes on January the 6th and so on, it is incumbent, isn't it, on all candidates and all people who want to be president or vice president that you accept the result of an election. It is, and it is also incumbent upon, we have systems in place. If you have concerns about the validity of the outcome of a vote count in a certain state, there are systems in place, as there should be, to ensure that those votes that were cast are actually being counted accurately. So the question being posed right now is to Donald Trump and to others, will you accept the outcome of the 2024 election? It's legitimate to say, well, yes. However, if there are concerns, we have a system in place to check those concerns. And when those checks and balances have been done, the people's voices have been heard, and you accept the outcome of that election. Yes.
She's talking about electoral vote counts, alternate electors. Before the January 6th riot happened, Ted Cruz and many others were in the chambers already beginning to contest Arizona electors by offering alternate electors. And that's why the J6 thing had to happen. They had to stop that process. So if it does go down wonky this time, they would have to stop the process again, because there is legal precedent and ability through the amendments and the Constitution about how you can contest elections if you find things were not run right, and they can be redone, they can be audited. There are several different solutions, but we definitely need to be able to have the right to check them. And the best answer I've heard so far is what she said. She said,
Fancy lemons. Make lemonade.
He says, when you get lemons, do you make lemonade?
No. First, you roll out a multimedia campaign to convince people lemons are incredibly scarce, which only works if you stockpile lemons, control the supply. Then a media blitz. Lemons are the only way to say I love you, the must-have accessory for engagements or anniversaries. Roses are out, lemons are in, billboards that say she won't have sex with you unless you've got lemons. You cut the beers in on it, limited edition lemon bracelets, yellow diamonds called lemon drops. You get Apple to call their new operating system OS Lemon. Little accent over the O. You charge 40% more for organic lemons, 50% more for conflict-free lemons. You pack the capital with lemon lobbyists. You get a Kardashian to suck a lemon wedge in a leaked sex tape. Timothy Chalamet wears lemon shoes at Cannes. Get a hashtag campaign. Something isn't cool or tight or awesome. No, it's lemon. Did you see that movie? Did you go to that concert? It was effing lemon. Billie Eilish, OMG, hashtag lemon. You get Dr. Oz to recommend 4 lemons a day and a lemon suppository supplement to get rid of toxins, because there's nothing scarier than toxins. Then you patent the seeds. You write a line of genetic code that makes lemons look just a little more like tits, and you get a gene patent for the tit lemon DNA sequence. You cross-pollinate, you get those seeds circulating in the wild, and then you sue the farmers for copyright infringement when that genetic code shows up on their land. Sit back, rake in the millions, and then, when you're done, and you've sold your lempire for a few $1 billion, then, and only then, you make some fucking lemonade.
Folks, that is a crazy video I found on Twitter this morning. I just thought I would share it with everybody. I don't really have a whole lot to say, but kind of reminds me of the way our government works, the way the media works, the way propaganda is pumped, the way censorship happens, the way things are made, forced, designed to rise to the top or be pushed to the bottom. And it's all a marketing scheme, including the way they're treating Trump. And so I just figured I'd bring you all this. It's a little comical. It's a little crazy. I had to listen to it twice in order to catch the gist of everything he was saying. But I hope I don't get a copyright strike behind it. But I have to try, folks. This one's great as well. And I hope this isn't considered hate speech, because I'm just replaying the video for YouTube's sake. Let me scoot this over real quick, folks.
Usually, the mentally retarded are divided into classifications: the educable, the trainable, and the custodial. Obviously, we can only assess the abilities or potential of the mentally retarded on an individual basis. Seemingly random motions and movements are fairly common among the custodial retarded, and they may take many forms. Sometimes there are motions which seem to have no meaning whatever, and may even cause unintentional self-inflicted injuries. The vast majority...
I'm keeping this video, folks. I'm going to take the sound off of this and store it in my keep files for future use. This is great.
Of the mentally retarded are intelligent enough that they can be taught a great many things. However, there's a wide range of ability even among those considered educable. And their ability to learn obviously varies according to their level of intelligence. Equally important is a stimulating environment. However, we must remember to set realistic standards that are not too high for the individual. Many of the trainable retarded can learn to take certain kinds of household responsibilities, some of which may be more complex than they are usually given credit for. It would be wrong to expect a mentally retarded person to become a master craftsman. The standards are too high. But even in the skilled trades, for example, the mentally retarded can be trained to become valuable assistants. Who are the mentally retarded? They are people. They come in both sexes and in all sizes, shapes, creeds, and colors. Wherever people live, there also live the mentally retarded.
And I got this from Jelly Memes, a man of memes off of X, just for copyright purposes. Like, subscribe, and share to Devoted Patriots. I just thought I'd bring you a little bit of stuff I found on Twitter today.